Hey everybody, this month's roundup is brought to you by Arcane Wonders and their excellent deck building game, Aquatica. Although I don't know if I should call it a deck building game so much as an engine building game, it really kind of defies description, and it is absolutely excellent. It's gotten wide praise all over the place. It's part of the Dice Tower Essentials line, so if Tom Vassell agrees with you, you know it must be good. In a nutshell, in this game, you've got a deck of cards that you use as denizens of your underwater kingdom, and you play them for their special powers to recruit more citizens, but more importantly, to conquer underwater locations. And each one of these location cards is a harvestable resource that you can use and combo string together all kinds of chains of actions that will lead to incredibly satisfying turns as you race towards the end to complete a unique series of objectives every time you play. There is so much going on here. The game is gobsmackingly gorgeous. The components are off the charts with triple level boards, and folks, Aquatica has been out of print for quite a while, but recently, publisher Arcane Wonders has gotten more in stock. So there's never been a better time to check it out, and if you'd like to know more, you can follow the link down in the show notes. And folks, April was a fantastic month, and I played 15 really great games, although I'm going to talk about 16 today. There's one I've been waiting a few months to talk about. And yeah, you know how it works. I'm going to give you a countdown from my least favorite game of the month to my most favorite game of the month, the new game of the month, which actually turns out is arguably a game of the year. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more about it because I've fallen so hard in love with it. But as always with these monthly roundups, we're going to start at the top of the list with number 16. Can I find the button? There it is. Number 16 on our list is Sand. And this is from, design publishing powerhouse Devere, who have been on such a tear for the last few months. Can seem to do no wrong last few months. I really mean last few years. And so I went into Sand with a little bit of trepidation because at its heart, it is a very rich and robust pick up and deliver game. And pick up and deliver is one of Jen's and my least favorite mechanisms in all of board gaming. But I figured anybody can make a traditional pick up and deliver palatable for me and Jen. It's going to be Devere because they just don't fail. Well, I am sad to say, for us, they failed. And, it's not for lack of trying. If I liked Pick Up and Deliver, I could totally see why this would be a keeper, because it's an excellent example of the genre. We're on some fantasy sci-fi planet that's completely barren, desolate dune style thing, and we're traders riding around on gigantic sandworms. The parallels to Dune are kind of hard to avoid, although it still has its own sweet cartoony vibe to it. The board is basically just a bunch of roads connecting all these different villages out in the desert, and it's our job to drive our sandworm from one room or one village to another, either picking up cubes in one location or delivering them to another location where they want them to convert that into points, or in some cases, different, more valuable cubes that yet a third location wants. And so you spend your entire time with this game just figuring out turn to turn what is the most efficient way to move our cute, adorable little sandworm meeples from spot to spot. There's easy roads that you can take that don't require a lot of consumption of resources, but they generally tend to be very long. So if you want to take fast transitions from one city to another, your worm is probably going to take some damage because there are dangerous roads out there. And you can spend time healing up your worm, feeding your worm, hydrating your worm so that they are ready to keep moving at full speed as much as possible. Also, you can upgrade your worm, and your worms are adorable, by the way. Nothing like Herbert's worms at all. And what drives all of this, you can see it right here in this picture, is a set of 4 colorful dice. The red, the blue, the black, and the white dice. And at the beginning of every round, those dice are rolled. And on your turn, you are going to pick Well, depending on your current situation, 1, 2, 3, maybe all 4 of those dice. Each one of them lets you, you can apply those dice results to a variety of actions. The most common one being moving from one village to another. But they can also be used for picking up cubes, for building infrastructure out in the world, for, storing the results of the cubes to be able to use on a later turn. And some actions care about the color of the die, some actions care about the number of the die, some actions don't care at all, and you can use them no matter what. The way you reserve the dice, though, the way you declare what you're going to use is you've got these little tokens that represent the 4 colors of dice. And if you say, hey, I want to, on this turn, use the black, the white, and the red die because that's the right combination of numbers and colors for what I want to get done as I zip around the desert. Well, you take those and you move them into your readied area. And then, once you've declared which ones you're going to use, you use those 3 dice in any order you want to do all the various pick up and pick-up-y deliveriness that this game really pushes. And one by one, you spend them and put them back up to the top level. And now, what's interesting about this is the slots that you put them in to indicate what actions you're going to do. Whenever you pick something up to deliver it later, the items you pick up go into those slots, thereby preventing you from being able to do other actions. I can't believe Devere has not put any pictures of this on Board Game Geek. They haven't. They've put very few pictures. But as you pick up stuff, your slots, your action slots, get gobbled up by the goods. So you got to deliver those things. And so this creates a very interesting tension that you want to be super efficient and pick up lots of stuff so you can make super deliveries. But if you do that, if you overload your worm with a bunch of cubes that need delivering, then your worm is stuck, can barely move at all, and you're going to very slowly inch your way across the desert trying to get to that super delivery. Much better in this game to ignore or avoid trying to be hyper efficient and instead go for quick, fast deliveries because that keeps fewer of your action slots tied up with cubes so you can do more stuff. Ready your worm for the later deliveries or whatever it might be. But sometimes it is in your best interest, depending on if the right things are close to each other. Yeah, I'm going to load up on 2 things, maybe 3 things. If I can still do 1/4 action, I could potentially pull that off. And now the interesting thing is, once you make the delivery and you score your money, which is points, and potentially you score alternate cubes if you deliver the right things in the right combination to the right place. The cubes that you deliver go onto your board in this escalating series of upgrades. Every time you deliver a cube, it goes into one section or another. A lot of the upgrades you get are just more points for scoring. The more you deliver a certain type of thing, the more points you get. But the most important deliveries not only give you points, but let you upgrade your worm. Let you hire helpers who give you special powers, like being able to travel faster or carry more without gobbling up as much space, or collect stuff without even having to be there. There's these different people that you can hire. You can upgrade your worm so it requires less food and water, is tougher and takes less damage, can move with lower value dice. You don't always need to grab high value dice to be able to move where you need to go. And that's the most interesting element of the game, because once you've started making deliveries and you fill these spaces up, your power ramps up significantly. At the beginning of this game, you're incredibly weak, incredibly slow, can barely get anything done. And it's not until midway through the game that you're thinking, wow, things are really starting to clip along at a good pace now. And honestly, that's probably my biggest complaint about the game. I don't want to wait until halfway through a game. And by the way, excuse me, this is a long game. It says on Board Game Geek and on the box, 2 hours. And, even as a 2-player game, you can expect it to be a really long game, with the first third of the game, let's say, being really full of very unengaging, simple little baby turns while we're slowly building our way up to where we can get powerful and pull off really cool things. I think the developers missed a trick here. And honestly, it'd be easy to fix. What do I want? I want a Terraforming Mars Prelude style variant for this game that says, hey, you know what? At the beginning of the game, as part of setup, you want the express version of this game where you can just cut the game length in half and get to the good bit faster. Hey, everybody has one of their assistants, one of the 4 types of assistants talents unlocked right from the get-go. And let's say at the beginning of the game, you've already delivered one of each of the 4 basic colors. So you've got your first upgrade, you've got your depot installed out on the board, and you're already twice as powerful as the way the game starts normally. If the game had something like that, they could just get us up and running faster to get through all those. I mean, literally, the beginning of this game is a slog. It feels like you're riding around on a slow moving, easily damaged worm. And it's not until midway through that things get really fun and exciting. And I just want to get to that really fast. But with the current rules as written, you got to put in a lot of groundwork before the game gets really going. And that's my problem. I wonder if the game had this kind of accelerated mode so we could just get right to the fun part quick. Maybe it would have been that rarest of beasts, a pick up and deliver game that Jen and I really enjoy. But with the design as it is right now, you've got to love pick up and deliver. Yeah, you've got to be, it's got to suffuse you. It's got to give you purpose and meaning to be pulled into this game. And if you do love pick up and deliver, if it's like one of your favorite mechanisms of all time, this game does a lot of really cool things with the genre. Just needs a little bit of tweaking. Speed it up. Let's get to the fun part faster is what would make me enjoy my time a little bit more with number 16 on the month, Sand. Okay, now let's go on to number 15 of the month, a little game called Deckula. This is basically a deck of cards, and in it you are a regal vampire living on a mansion trying to just, live your best life. But when you've got all these annoying house guests coming over, and what you need to do to win this game is just survive through the deck. The deck is full of these visitors who, once they show up at your house, they cause you all kinds of trouble, limit you in various ways. But on your turn, what you're always going to do is draw the top card of the deck after it's been shuffled. And you look at it, and if it's not something like a visitor that just barges its way in and makes itself a very unwelcome house guest, you have a choice to make. You are either going to spend the energy required to put the card into play, which means hopefully it'll help you for the rest of the game deal with your unwanted visitors, or cards will combo with other cards, all kinds of things like that. You can see in this playthrough I'm doing here, I've already got a bunch of cards out, including one that's gobbled up a visitor that's not bothering me anymore, right? So you can either spend your energy to put this into play, or you can discard the card. It's out of the game, unless you find a way to go through your discard pile, but it'd be out of the game, and as a result, you get more energy. So every card you draw is a multi-use card. You either trash it for energy, or you spend the energy to put it into play. And you win if you can survive through the deck. And you can increase the difficulty by putting more scarier, or more annoying, really, house guests in the deck. And it's so charming, let me just say right now. The reason I was interested in it, even though this is a solo-only game, it will not work for multiple players. Hey, what's going on? Where did the video go? All right, well, let's just rewind a little bit, shall we? Has my internet gone down? All right, that was weird. Yeah. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to pause for a second, folks. Okay, hopefully it'll keep playing now. Don't know what that was about. What was I just saying? Okay, right. Solo-only game. Use your cards to either get energy or spend them. So it's really kind of like a one-step removed, discard cards to play cards, like, Race for the Galaxy. And it works great there, and it works here in a really wonderful way, in a different way. And again, this game is just so chock full of charm and replayability, because every time you play, you're just going to reshuffle that deck, throw some different visitors in there, and you're going to get a different experience. All the gameplay revolves around trying to make informed decisions about, right, this card is really only going to work if this other card comes into play and the two combo together. What are the chances that I'll be able to get that other card into play? It'll eventually show up, because I got to go through the entire deck. But what if I'm broke? Am I going to try and always set some energy aside to make sure? Am I going to gamble because I want this other one right now? And then when the one I was waiting for shows up right afterwards. Those are the kinds of things you're balancing throughout this game, and it just works. And I'm not surprised that so many channels devoted to solo gameplay have so highly lauded this game. It is a real gem, a super adored game amongst the solo gaming community, and I was really glad I got to give it a try. Now, I am not a solo gamer at heart, so that means it's not necessarily a good fix for me, but if you yourself are a solo gamer and you want to support a little independent solo game developer, you might, I never do this in the roundups, but I'm just going to give a shout out to Dr. Mindflip is the developer, and you can go, it's right there on screen, to Deckula.drmindflip.com, and you can print this out yourself as a print and play, or you can order an on-demand copy. And again, if you like charm and macabre humor and fun, replayable solo gaming, I don't know why you wouldn't want to check out number 15 of the month, Deckula. But now, let's move on to number 14 of the month, another solo game, Sfynx. And for people who are listening instead of watching, it's spelled weird. It's F, Sierra, Foxtrot, Yankee, November, X-ray. Sfynx with an F instead of a PH, basically, which is probably going to make it very, very hard for people who might be interested to actually do a search online and find it. But if you like solo games, it might be worth checking out. What is it? Basically, there are some pictures here. There is one good picture on Board Game Geek. This is a game where you've got a grid of, hieroglyphic-y type symbols. They're all randomly put into the grid, and some of them are face down, which means they're inactive, and some are face up. And what happens is you draw a series of task cards that tell you, right, I need to get these particular symbols in this particular order, and they all have to be active, and that means I can, quote, solve that riddle of the Sfynx with an F instead of a PH. Get rid of that and then draw another one. Solve enough riddles, you win the game. So, that's hard. This is basically a sliding puzzle type thing, because at any given time you've got a couple of basic actions you can do plus 4 randomly selected actions that were drawn as part of setup, and on your turn you're going to do a few of these, and then they are going to get used up, and you won't be able to use them again, or all of them again, until you've gone through all 4 of these special powers. So there's a lot of strategizing. These are powers that will let you swap things diagonally instead of the normal power which lets you swap them orthogonally, or powers that let you slide an entire row or column so things wrap around. And it's all about trying to manipulate these things so that you will get the right things into the right place while dealing with the fact that the Sfynx itself is trying to mess you up. At the end of every round, you reveal another Sfynx token that will no doubt mess up the plans you're trying to do. Will take your powers away temporarily, or move things in ways, or hey, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you can even anticipate that, oh, it'll move things to where I need them to be. Gotcha, Sfynx. And it's at its heart just a fun, fast-playing little puzzle. Now, here's the thing. I went into this because supposedly it can play up to 4 players. And Jen and I did play it because I like the idea, I like the presentation, I like the developer-publisher, but I do have to say, no matter what player count you're going to play this as, it's a solo game. It's a solo game where everybody is just taking turns being the solo player. Nothing was really put into this game so that players could oh, I've got a power that you don't, or something like that. Yeah, that's not true, because we all kind of share the central pool of powers. And I would have liked to see something for the multiplayer to make it feel a little bit more multiplayer and a little bit less, oh, it's really a solo game where we're just taking turns, trying to solve the puzzle. It's sharp, it's fun, it's fast. As a solo experience, I think it's a blast with a lot of replayability, but as a non-solo gamer myself, it comes in a little bit lower at number 14 this month, Sfynx, with an FY instead of a PHI. Okay, then let's move on to number 13. It's Gloomhaven, Buttons and Bugs. And while I have not done a run-through of it, my good buddy Rel Gaviola has, so I've just got his run-through from his YouTube channel on screen here, just showing off what it looks like if you want to play a game of Gloomhaven in 15 to 20 minutes with just a small handful of cards and cubes and a single special die and a hand of 4 cards. It is amazing to me. Look how much Rel is having to puzzle his way through this thing. It is amazing to me how this captures almost everything of the full epic 2-hour plus Gloomhaven experience and shrinks it down into the most hyper compact card game you can imagine. And it doesn't hardly sacrifice anything at all. Yeah, you don't have followers, and there's a few things that aren't there, but the crux of this game is, unlike Gloomhaven, where your special character on this fantasy combat adventure game has its own unique hand of cards, and that hand of cards is your life. When you run out of cards, you die, and you're trying to fight a war of attrition and make it through a dungeon to survive. That's the same thing here, except your deck of cards is literally just 4 cards, and just like Gloomhaven, every turn you're gonna pick 2 cards and do a high action of one of the cards and a low action of the other. And every turn after you've made your decision, your enemies on the board might surprise you. You thought, oh, they're gonna rush towards me and I'll go really slow and wait for them to come to me. Oh no, they did the one thing I didn't think they're gonna do. They put up their shields and now I've got to completely rethink my plan. That's the crux of what makes Gloomhaven such a compelling cooperative puzzle, and they brought that over brilliantly into this solo-only experience. And it's phenomenal. You only have 4 cards, but really it's 8, because once you've used a card, you flip it from its A side to its B side, and then it comes back into your hand. And then later on, if you use the B side, then it goes into your discard pile, and you'll have to rest to get them back. So really, with only 4 cards, you've got 8, and what's amazing about this game is the variety of the different designs of the different playable classes all have very different feels in what they can do, and the way those 4 simple cards can interact with each other. And if I play this one, then that one, I mean, it's super impressive. As a long-time diehard Gloomhaven fan, Gloomhaven is in my top 5 games of all time, this thing is amazing. And my only complaint, and it's a complaint shared by many, is it is a solo-only game. I was so excited to try it, I ended up getting 2 copies of it so that Jen and I could play at the same time. And I'm going through the same dungeon she's going, but since I've got a different playable character than her, it's going to play out very differently for me. The guards or the beetles or whatever it is I'm fighting will come at me in a very, very different way than Jen, even if we are both using the same die result to drive the enemy AI. And Jen and I actually found that to be a fun exercise, and we definitely enjoyed it. I was really surprised how much Jen enjoyed it. I mean, this might be a gateway for her back into full-on Gloomhaven, which these days she's a little bit intimidated by, even though we've spent hundreds of hours playing Gloomhaven. We've been out of it for a few years. Frosthaven is a scary beast. I'm really glad I've got this. Might hold on to it and see if this can bring Jen back over to the Gloomhaven fold. But really, at its heart, it is a solo game. And that does break my heart. I wish the developers would have done just the tiniest bit of work to say, hey, if you get 2 copies and you've got players playing against each other, there's ways we can interact with each other. We can share stuff between, like we're in different multiverses or something like that. Dealing with the same problem in my multiverse and your multiverse, but we're bound across the multiverse. And so we can give things to each other, or we can distract enemies, or if I kill an enemy, it does something on your board. Just a few simple rules like that, I think, could have really elevated this and made it a fun multiplayer experience too. As it is, it's a wonderful solo experience. Absolutely mind-boggling how they squeezed all this in. And it comes in at number 13 of the month, Gloomhaven, Buttons and Bugs. Now, let's move on to number 12, Pixies, which is a sweet, charming little abstract card game I have not done a run-through for, so I am using the run-through of Ruel Gaviola, my best buddy in all of board games, because he did a very, very nice demonstration of how this plays on his channel. You can see it over there. How does it work? Well, basically, every round you are going to take turns drafting cards and adding them to your own grid. The cards are numbered 1 through 9. If you grab a 1, you have to put it in the 1 spot. If you grab a 5, you put it in the 5 spot, which is in the middle of the grid. If you grab a 9, you put it in the bottom right, the 9 spot. And the thing is, if you grab a card and put it there, it's queued up ready to score. But what has to happen is, if I put an 8 in the bottom middle, I need to draft another 8 later on to activate the 8 so I can score 8 literal points off of it. And I want to score those points. If I get a 1 and then another 1, that's great. I scored 1 point off it. So the high value cards are very valuable, but the high value cards often come with negative elements on it that says, hey, if I put this 8 into play, I'm going to lose 3 points no matter what. And if I don't get another 8 so I can activate my first 8, then all I'm going to do is lose points, whereas opposed to, hey, if I activated it, then it's 8 minus the 3, I still score 5 points. But that's not all. you're trying to lay these out both in the grid to activate so you can get your best points, but you're also trying to get cards of the same color next to each other because you can score bonus points for having a big contiguous group of all reds or all yellows or whatnot. And that's it. I pretty much described almost everything there is about the game. And it is a sharp, fun little game. Very abstract, very pretty. A gorgeous, gorgeous game, I have to say. And a fun little trifle, practically a filler. Yeah, I would call this a filler length game. And both Jen and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't know that it's a keeper for us because at the end of the day, for me, it's a little bit too abstract. I wish there was something a little bit more to tell a story other than just say, hey, get all your cards in your best scoring grid. But if you don't mind abstract card games and you're looking for a fun, puzzly little, beautiful, absolutely beautiful puzzly little game, you might want to check out number 12 of the month, Pixies. Okay. Then we move on to number 11 of the month, Apistocracy, which I did a sponsored preview for. And now this is a worker placement game that is set, in the time of Victorian high manners society, where we're going to balls and hanging out in tea rooms and engaging in scuttlebutt in the parlor and talking bad about other families and all the kind of stuff you expect from Jane Austen type setting. But it's all driven by very streamlined, straightforward worker placement. And it's really, really sharp. It's hard not to draw parallels between this and a worker placement game that came out a few years ago, or not exactly worker placement, but quasi-worker placement game called Obsession. And basically, if you ever thought, boy, I really love Obsession, except it's so big and complex and heavy, I just can't play this with any of my friends and family, you might want to check out Apistocracy because it is a very approachable game set in this time of high tea and high manners. Every round, you're going to send your calling card, which is a worker, to one of the various actions and engage in various activities, getting objective cards that will give you things you're chasing after, trying to work your way up the social ladder, which is based on this famous beehive picture from real Victorian England. They've repurposed that and turned it, this old piece of art into a literal board game. The beehive of high society that you work your way up. And the interesting thing is, every worker placement spot you go to, or almost every one of them, requires you to spend influence to put your worker there. And the influence comes in the form of cards, literal traditional playing cards, deck of 52 type cards, 7 of clubs, queen of hearts, those kinds of things. At the beginning of the game, you have a set of cards, and if you want to go to a spot that says, oh, well, you need to have at least club level influence, you got to play a club or better, a club or a heart or a diamond, which is, I think diamonds are the next highest and hearts are the highest. So hearts can stand in for anything. Whereas, at the bottom of the list is clubs. Spades are the second highest priority. So your cards in your hand are a resource. You need to use them to be able to do all the worker placement actions you want. And sometimes you find, I can't do that action because I used my really high level thing for this other action. But this is a deck building game as well, because over time you can upgrade the cards in your hand and build a bigger deck so you have more flexibility to do the worker placement you want to do. But then I've only told you about half the game, because there's 2 reasons you're building your deck: to get a stronger deck that will help you do worker placement without getting stuck by not being able to do high influence actions, but at the end of the game, after 4 weeks of worker placement, the final challenge of the game is all the players face off against each other in an epic game of whist, which is an old-time, very popular trick-taking game that they used to play a lot in the Victorian parlors. And that's what you do. So throughout the game, you have been deck building not only to make your worker placement stronger, but to prepare for this epic whist tournament that's going to happen at the end. And then you play through several hands of whist. And half of your points at the end of the game could come from, really dominating in the whist challenge at the end. It feels to me like a boss fight from a video game that we'd played this whole other game, and now at the end, we're going to do trick-taking and see who wins, and, it's not going to win you the game. You still have to do good stuff, but, it can really shift your tides if you were building not for worker placement, but building for that whist tournament at the end. And, it just follows standard trick-taking rules, with, following suit and trump cards and all of that. that. And it's really, really clever, and it feels so thematic that, that's like the big final thing, the big final showdown is how well can I actually play trick-taking as if we are sitting in the tea room or the parlor trying to resolve our final things. Are all of our reputation rides on this one hand? Can I win this last trick? And it brings all of this stuff together in a beautiful melange of gameplay. My only real complaint about it is immaterial. I mentioned this in my final thoughts, that one thing I wanted to see was a little bit more setup variability, because one thing I didn't mention is everybody has a sponsor that gives them special powers if they do certain things. And in the default game, there's only 4 sponsors, and if you get this sponsor, you're going to do this type of gameplay, and you really aren't going to deviate from it. And I was hoping there'd be more variety with the sponsors, and you can mix and match and get more interesting stuff. And it turns out that was the plan all along. So as soon as I found out that, my one big complaint about Apistocracy just withered away. Now, I haven't gotten to play that. So right now, I'm ranking Apistocracy at 11 of the month because I'm basing it on the game I got to play, the prototype, not the final version. But I expect my appreciation of the game will be enhanced immeasurably. I will esteem it very much when it eventually delivers on that extra. But for now, it's my number 11 of the month, Apistocracy. Okay, now let's move on to number 10, Kinfire Council. Now, this is a quasi-sequel to the very, very popular Kinfire Chronicle cooperative adventure games, and then the also very popular Kinfire Delve cooperative card games. And this is the third in the series where, after all the adventurers have done all their adventuring in the previous cooperative adventure games, they end up setting up shop in the main city of the Kinfire universe and become employees of the city council. And we are those council members trying to meet the needs of the people, trying to deal with this nefarious cult that's causing all kinds of trouble and bringing drought and plague and monsters and terrorist attempts and all kinds of things. And also trying to just play some solid worker placement and manage the city. Every round, there's going to be new laws that we as council members have to vote on, and we can send our workers out to the various spots of the city to get the resources we need or to deploy our influence that we need to get ahead. Because this is definitely, unlike the previous Kinfire games, this is a competitive game, and it can be a very in-your-face competitive game. And I've already done a run-through for it. You can learn more about this in my final thoughts where I go into more detail, but if there's 2 things I want to sum this game up as, one of the most thematically strong worker placement games I've ever seen. Everything you do in this game is so driven by theme. There's nothing abstract about it at all, and it's so wonderfully done. And then it's also one of the most interactive worker placement games I've ever played as well. And that's really my only problem with it, because there's players are always, we're conniving members of a council, and we're always trying to find ways never to directly steal from anybody else. Actually, that's not true. There are some direct take that steal cards, but you can leave them out. But even if you leave those out, there are so many ways that you could try to maneuver the political landscape to be in your favor and not in your opponent's favor. And Jen and I found it was maybe a little much, that we spent too much time conniving to figure out how to ensure that you could not get your fair due from the city coffers at the end of the round like you planned for the entire round, because I swooped in and got it all first. So if you're looking for a worker placement game that is incredibly thematic and also incredibly interactive in a lot of different ways, both positive and negative, you'll want to check this out. I want to check it out because I've read now on the crowdfunding campaign that they're going to have an expansion for it that adds solo and co-op play. And oh my gosh, if I could play this as a co-op game where I'm working with Jen to overcome the machinations of the cult rather than working against Jen. It's interesting. I mentioned the cult briefly. The cult is effectively a third opponent in the game, because the cult is trying to take care of the people's needs just as much as we do, so they can basically get us kicked out of office. So we're always trying to make moves to score points for us and prevent the cult from rising in power and influence. But if we can't stay ahead of the cult, and it looks like the cult might actually win the game, then you need to pivot and become, the top lieutenant of the cult, in secret, of course, so you could still win. And that's all Very cool. Really neat. I mean, it's from designer Kevin Wilson. I mean, the man knows what he's doing. He's designed a game or two. And this one is very, very impressive. But in its competitive form, it was a little too competitive for us. I would love, somewhere down the road, to give Kinfire Council a go as a co-op game. So I'm very excited about that. But for now, I rank it number 10 of the month as a competitive game, Kinfire Council. Okay, now let's move on to a number 9, Exoworld Survival. Now this is a cooperative game on a planet. There's no fanciful stuff. This is about real human future using real speculative future human tech to actually set up viable colonization of real dangerous, completely uninhabitable planets as we, somewhere down the road start to, work our way beyond the bounds of our solar system. And it is incredibly thematic. I mean, every card in this game is based on, you can imagine, real-world tech. This could be The Expanse, the board game, if you weren't thinking of it so much. I mean, you're never spending any time in a spaceship. You spend all your time on the planet trying to build a colony that those adventuring rogues from The Expanse would come and visit at some point. And it's really good. It's fully cooperative. And basically, we start out with a bunch of resources, energy, food, water, emergency resources. And every round, all those resources are draining away, and we're one step closer to dying or freezing to death. And everything we're doing in this game is trying to deploy technologies that will ensure that we stop consuming and maybe even start generating excess amounts of those core resources that we need. Because to win this game, all we have to do is make a self-sufficient colony. Once we've got enough cards in play that all of our basic needs are met and we're not, hemorrhaging anything, that's when we win. That feels like a very thematically and scientifically grounded, again, there's nothing fanciful about this game. It's very hard science focused. And we do it through, an action point system. Every round you've got 4 action points. And if I recall correctly, and you spend those action points either drawing more cards into your hand, kind of a research and development, playing those cards out to the board. And to do that, you have to sacrifice other cards, just like Race for the Galaxy. It works great there. It works great here. Or as you play the cards on the board, you're actually building the navigable map of the space station, or of where you live. And all of these spaces you're building, they automatically, when built, change how much you consume, how much you produce. But then you could also spend time, action points, moving around from room to room to activate special powers or repair rooms when they go offline because of damage. Because also, every round, there's going to be another event card drawn that replicates real events that will cause you problems and really slow you down. And it's a very impressive game. If you like hard science and real speculative future about mankind's, humanity's future, it is definitely worth checking out. Also, not for nothing, it's really, really great that it comes with a variety. I forget, it comes with like 8 or 10 different planets, and each planet has unique things that will change the core rules of the game, and also unique resources that are available. Some things aren't there, other things are, and they will change the value of the cards. Installing solar panels aren't going to work very well for you if you're on a planet that has, nonstop cloud cover and, the star's energy never makes it down. Whereas in another game, that solar panels might be the difference between life and death. So everything feels real. Everything feels lived in. It's very, very clever. My only complaint, the only thing that keeps this from ranking higher for me and Jen is, while we enjoyed it as a cooperative experience, the powers we have with our characters are very simple, straightforward. It kind of feels like they're pandemic characters that only have half of their abilities. So I feel this game is probably going to be at its best when you play with 3 or 4 players, because then you've got a wide variety of cool special powers and players interacting with each other. As a 2-player game, we often found, okay, I'm just going to be over here doing my thing and you'll be over there doing your thing, and maybe we'll get together and swap some cards, but it's so big, I just don't know if it's worth it. It's going to take too much time for me to get you the card. Just draw a card. You'll probably find it anyway, because with only 2 players, half of the cards are going to end up in your hand and half of them are going to end up in mine. I really do feel like, as a 4-player game, where all the stuff gets spread out and we really have to coordinate more and really find ways to make our powers combo together when we're together. Like, one player is a medic. You have to be in a room with somebody else to break their to repair their sprained ankle. with only one other player, how often is that going to happen? With 3 other players, I'm going to be in demand a lot more. So I think this game is really going to sing, and I would love to play it someday as a 4-player game because I think it would really be awesome. Or alternatively, I think it's going to be better as a solo game, quite frankly, because then, as a solo game, you play 3 characters, which is what you can see Shay on screen doing here now. He's demonstrating the solo. You play 3 characters, and they share a hand of cards, so you get more interaction between the characters, where at 2, you just don't see it that much. I'm just kind of off doing my thing and you're doing your thing, and maybe every once in a while we'll wave at each other on opposite sides of a corridor. And that's the only thing that keeps it at number 9, and it could have rated much higher because I love everything about this game, as did Jen. We were both very impressed by number 9 of the month, Exoworld Survival. Now, let's move on to number 8, Core of Discovery. This is another game that I did a sponsored preview for, and I'm very impressed by this. This is based on a very popular and award-winning comic book series about an alternate version of the American frontier history where the Lewis and Clark expedition sure was out there to map out the highways and byways of this new country and to, enter into treaties with the local population. But here's what people don't know about Lewis and Clark. They were also out there killing monsters because the new frontier was overrun with all kinds of terrifying, scary, horrible stuff. And that's the setting. But at its heart, this is a game of exploration and deduction because on your turn, you're generally just going to do one simple thing. Pick a face-down tile that connects to the stuff you've already explored, look underneath it, reveal what's there, interact with that space immediately, and then take the tile you covered up and put it on your timer of doom. Because the more you do actions, this is a exploration, deduction, survival horror game. That's the mix of genres, and it's a really cool mix. Because while you're moving around trying to complete whatever your objective is, and the game comes with 2 core modes, mission modes, but then there's a bunch of other mission modes and expansions that are available. You're trying to, explore the land, find the things you need to do in the order you need to do them. And the thing is, you have to be really careful. Every time you reveal something, it could be the panacea that you need desperately to avoid starvation at the end of the day, or it could be a monster that's just going to slow you down and block you and waste your time. Either way, you got to reveal something and then time passes. And up at the top of the board, you've got, at the beginning of each day, 3 different challenges you have to overcome. And if you fail to, they will hit you hard. But it's generally impossible every day to deal successfully with all the challenges, so you have to make tough choices about, we're just going to go hungry. Or we are not going to, spend time so that one of our people can get over the fever they've got. Or we are going to overheat because we don't have time to make a shelter to protect ourselves from the baking sun. Or we're going to get eaten alive by bugs or whatever it might be because we can afford to take the hit on that one, but we can't afford to take the hit on the other one. And by the time that objective that challenge comes up, we better be ready for it. We better have found the mud or the rocks or the water or whatever it is. And that's where the deduction comes in. Because when it's your turn and you're going to pick one of those things to look at, and maybe you're going to supplement it with like a cool special power you have from your cards and your equipment and whatnot. If you pay attention to what's already been discovered, you can make educated guesses because next to the board is this sheet of all of the different rules. That water is always next to forests. That mud is always next to mountains, or bogs are next to mountains. That monsters are always near the native villages. The native villages are always near food sources. And so with just this simple set of rules, the more you reveal, the more educated guesses you can be, and you can pinpoint and target what you're looking for. So that's where the deduction comes in. So you've got really cool deduction, fun and terrifying exploration because it's mixed with survival horror, a lot of variety, especially if you get some of the expansions that are available, and it's a very impressive game. I was nervous about it because in recent years, I have discovered Jen and I have kind of fallen out of love with deduction as a game mechanism. We're just not that into it as much as we used to be. But this one, we really enjoyed. And it's because this isn't just a pure deduction game. This is a deduction game crossed with a survival game, and that both genres are elevated by each other, and that's what makes it special, and that's why Core of Discovery comes in at number 8 of the month. Okay, then we go on to number 7, Grand Central Skyport. This is another sponsored preview. My run-through for it will be coming sometime in May. I'm not quite sure when. I think late May, you'll actually get to see this in action. Although, backers of the show, Patreon backers, they can watch it right now because they always get to see videos days, weeks, months early, without ads even. So some of you might have already seen my run-through for this and heard what I think. But for those of you who haven't, folks, watch for this. This is a very, very cool... what would you call it? A rondel game. This is a rondel tableau builder because I'm running a Skyport in a world where dirigibles have become the primary modes of transportation, in this, high society Victorian England. And I'm trying to make the best Skyport in the world by bringing, I've got a handful at any given time of 2 cards that represent the balloons, the transport balloons that can come in, the airships. And they can come in either on the left or the right side of my Skyport. And 2 things happen when they land. First of all, they have a little instruction on them that you have to carry out. And often those instructions will tell them, hey, once you come in on the west side of the Skyport, you then have to muscle your way through the Skyport and move 3 steps into the Skyport, and that's where your final docking will be. And the thing is, this is a tableau building game where I'm trying to build more docking stations. I'm trying to get, tycoons installed in those docking stations to get their special powers. And I'm trying to get the right airships into the right spots amongst all these docking stations so they can score a lot of points. But the thing is, every time I bring a new one in, they have the potential to jostle everything around as they kind of muscle their way around. Or, this one will come in and says, hey, once I land, this has to swap position. This blue one that I just landed has to swap position with a purple one. And I don't want to swap position with the purple one. I've already got my purple airships in the perfect spot to score lots of points. So, how am I going to deal with that? Because I really want to get this blue card played. Well, okay, I can do it, and now the purple are out of position, and I've got a new problem. I've got to get the purple back into position. But if I look ahead, because I've only mentioned one half of the game, there's all this stuff about playing cards and manipulating your Skyport, which is a very fluid and fun puzzly activity. But the other thing that the airship, or the card that I played, because it's either an airship, or it's a new tower that I built in my Skyport, or it's a tycoon that unlocks new special abilities. So I'm going to play one of those 3 things into my Skyport every turn. Whichever I play, it tells me on the card how far I move on the Grand Central Skyport, the rondel in the middle of the table. And you go clockwise, 3 steps, 2 steps, 5 steps, whatever it is, and wherever you land, you get usually a choice between draft another airship card, or draft a tower, or draft a tycoon, or sometimes you land on spots where, hey, you get a new card and you get a special ability, and there's set collection stuff, there's all kinds of things. Each one of these spaces are multi-use spaces, and trying to figure out, right, I want to land this airship right now, because it's going to let me move 4 steps, and that's going to let me land on the rondel spot I need to land on, because I need to get that wild balloon, because that's going to let me solve my purple balloon dilemma that I had, because if I can get that, I can place this over here and that will trigger that, etc., or whatever it might be. So every card you pick, every card you draft, you're thinking about it in terms of moving to the correct spots on the rondel, but also not royally messing up your Skyport, but instead working with your Skyport to make it more valuable. And it's freaking brilliant. This is such a fun, puzzly game. And not for nothing, a gorgeous game too, because it's all got wonderful art from Andrew Bosley. Folks, watch for it. You'll be able to learn more about it in late May, when it goes up on crowdfunding, along with several other games. It's from 25th Century Games. It's part of a 4-game suite. And all of these games are going to be covered on the channel. This one, Big Sewer, Wine Cellar, and what was the other one? There's the Wine Cellar, Big Sewer. Oh, I can't think of the 4th one. Oh, that's driving me nuts. Sand Art. Sand Art was the 4th one. Had to go pause and take a peek. Other members, Kimberly, Shay, and Ruel are going to be covering the other 3 games, and this is the one I ended up covering. And if those other 3 games are as good as this one, in 25th Century Games, I've said it before and I'll say it again, they are on a tear. They are just quietly putting out great title after great title. Always a lot of fun to play, and with amazing production values, which Grand Central Skyport definitely delivers on, folks. All I can say now is watch this space, because I think think everybody's going to be super impressed by this one. It's number 7 of the month. Any other month, it would have come in much, much higher. But it was just a really amazing month. So that was the preview of my preview of Grand Central Skyport. Okay. Now, let's move on to number 6, Epochs, Course of Cultures. Now, I did a sponsored preview for this. It's crowdfunding right now, and it's blowing up, and with good reason. This is a 4X-style civilization building game, which is played out over 3 epochs, kind of antiquities, medieval, and then modern. And in each era, if I recall correctly, I think you're going to take 6 turns. So you're going to get, basically 18 turns over the course of the game to take your society from, prehistory all the way up to modern day. And the main engine for improving your society is by playing these invention cards you've got in your hand. And there's so many civilization games out there, folks, and I played so many of them. And this is a 4X. It's got the explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. It's got player versus player stuff if you want it. So why would I even spend my time playing this? Because this is so full of so many cool special ways to do 4X style gameplay that I haven't seen before. Number one thing that I really am impressed by is the variability, because those invention cards I was talking about, they're multi-use. You can either play them to give yourself some kind of special power that you'll use throughout the game. By the end of the game, you'll have 8, 10, 12 inventions that you have got, and they're creating all these big synergistic combos that are making your society more and more powerful as you go from antiquities to modern day. But here's the thing that I love about them. If you've got inventions in your hand that, I don't want to be a military player. I don't want to run roughshod over my opponents, but I've got these military cards. You can always trash those cards instead of playing them, because that will give you an extra action you can do out on the main board. On your turn, you're either going to play an invention and do 1 action, or you're going to trash an invention and do 2 actions. It's as simple as that, but that gives you so much flexibility in how you approach things, and you never feel like you're railroaded into a particular style of play, and I love that. That's not always the case in a lot of these kind of 4X games. Because I've got this particular hand of cards, and because I've got this particular, we're the Carthaginians, I really need to focus on this. In this game, you have so much flexibility. You bend the cards to your will instead of doing what they say. But that's not all. That's one thing I love: the flexibility, the variety, and the thematic elements of it too. But then I also love that this game understands something about humanity that most civilization games don't. A rising tide floats all boats. If one society makes a breakthrough, that's going to affect all the other societies around them, because word gets out. And this game models that. When I make an invention, not only do I get that special power for the rest of the game, but I get resources that I desperately need to do other actions. So do my neighbors. Whenever you play an invention, your neighbor to the left gets something. Whenever my neighbor to the right plays something, I get something for it too, because we're all humans. We're all the same species. We're all in it together. And that's not all. Even though if you want to, you can build up a strong military and go out and try to, Genghis Khan the whole place. It's almost more lucrative unless you build an engine, unless you've got special powers and cards that really make it worth your while. It's too expensive to raise an army and maintain it and then deal with the penalties. Because if you actually declare war on somebody else, you become a warmonger. It's like a scarlet letter. Your culture will suffer. Your government will suffer. You will lose victory points. And it better be that combat was worth everything you lose, because, hey, I ended up getting a city. I took a city from somebody else and I didn't have to build it myself. So that was worth it because of all the bonus powers I get. But the most important thing is, if you declare war, you're a warmonger, and that means other players can declare war on you and they don't suffer any penalties. So that's something to think of as well. And again, it gets back to the whole, we're in this together. If somebody wants to go rogue and beating everybody up, well, that gives everybody else the opportunity to, we'll engage in warfare to shut that warmonger down. And so there's this detente that's always there. If there's somebody at the table who has a military bent, well, other players do have methods to be very defensive and then turn the tide on them if they want to. And all of this means you don't have to succeed by attacking your neighbor. You can succeed by working with them. One of the most important actions, remember I said you're going to do 1 or 2 actions depending on whether you make an invention or not. One of the best actions in this game is open up trade with your neighbors. Put a trade building in their city that they've built. They'll benefit from it. You'll benefit from it. If some third player wants to come along and raise that city to the ground, because I'm invested in it, I can deploy my troops and help defend that city, even if it's a neutral city that was just discovered as part, not owned by anybody. So I just love all these positive interactions between players. I love this flexibility, and I love the fact that at no point do you ever feel like, unlike a lot of 4X games, well, sooner or later I've got to burn you to the ground because otherwise you'll do it to me. It's phenomenal. I've done a quick preview of it. Like I said, you can go check that out to see it in action. I've only scratched the surface. There are so many, the way it does exploration, the way it does science is maybe the best implementation I've ever seen of science because it truly understands what science is in a way that most games that just are min-max, zero-sum affairs do not. And that's what makes Epochs Course of Culture so special, and it's my number 6 of the month. Wow, it was a good month. Now, let's talk about number 5 of the month, The Sixth Realm. Oh, why didn't I make this my number 6 of the month? It just worked out that way. It was my number 5, and this is another game I did a sponsored preview for. This is a big, probably the crunchiest, heaviest Euro I have played so far this year. This game is in Vital Lacerda territory. This is in Mind Clash territory, like Tricarion or Anachrony, because this is a game where there are effectively 6 separate mini-games going on simultaneously in parallel. Are you going to be the type of player where your focus is really on dungeon delving and getting lots of artifacts out of the nearby dungeon? Are you going to focus more on building up the city and doing a polyomino tile-laying style game? Are you going to record the exploits, which is a set collection tile-grabbing game? Are you going to be more of a merchant trying to figure out how to most effectively do trade with the 6 different guilds? The Merchant Guild, the Adventurer Guild, the Builder Guild, the Librarian Guild, the Explorer Guild. Are you going to explore the land and build up the infrastructure, route building style? Well, it's up to you. But here's the trick of this game. You're going to do all of those things. Because as part of setup, the Queen of the Land decrees that, hey, this game, the order of events is always going to be, first we explore, then we do dungeons, then we do scribes, then we do building, then we do merchants, right? And then there's the section, or that we're going to do these things in this order every round. And that means everybody on their turn is going to do what the Queen says. And so you're invested in all these different games. But here's the deal. When the Queen says, hey, it's time to do scribes, you're like, I don't want to do scribes. I don't need that. It's totally useless for me. The little arrow that is pointing to the scribe token, it is telling you to do scribes, and you're saying, Queen, I don't want to do it. You can spend resources to repeat the previous thing. I want to go back and I want to do more exploring again. I want to do that again. Or you can jump ahead and do the next thing. Hey, next turn, everybody's going to have access to the dungeon. I want to do it now. So I'm going to pay resources to do the next thing or the previous thing. So you can pave your own way and ignore the Queen's rules and not adhere to the very strict, you're going to do every minigame in order as prescribed by the Queen. But here's the problem. It's so expensive to do that. So if you're going to do it, you really have to make it worth your while. And that's the core puzzle. And that's what makes this game approachable, because this game could be overwhelming. There's so many things going on with 6 different games going on simultaneously. But the fact that everybody's dealing with them in the same order means it is a much more approachable game. And that's just one of many things that make this game really stand out. The communal way objectives work. There's so much that goes into this game. The way that, players can actually overcome the wishes of the Queen and reprogram that thing so it works better for them and maybe worse for other players. The game is absolutely incredible. It looks awesome with art from Miko. It's the design team up of Seth Jaffe, one of my all-time faves, and was it Dunstan? Was it Matt Dunstan, I think? I think so. But it's a great design. It's a gorgeous looking game. It's big. It's long. It is epic. And I am here for it. Every year we get a few games like this, And, like from Vita Lasarda or Mind Clash or a few other places. Maybe Board and Dice will do one. One of them is here now. It's crowdfunding right now. You can watch my run-through to see more. I mean, by the way, folks, everything that I've got run-throughs for on the channel, there's links for them down in the show notes if you want to see them. But that's number 5 of the month. Why didn't I make it my number 6? It just didn't work. I didn't even think about it till now. Number 5 of the month is the 6th Realm. All right, now let's go on to number 4, How to Save a World. Now, this is another game that I'm doing a sponsored preview for. It's going to be launching on crowdfunding in a few weeks from now. So you could watch it now if you're a sponsor of the show, or you can wait a few weeks and watch it when it goes public. But if you watch it now, you get to watch it without ads. Anyway, though, that's neither here nor there. Stop trying to upsell. But folks, if you go to patreon.com/Rahdo, there are so many wonderful benefits for being a supporter of the show. But anyway, let's talk about How to Save a World. This is a worker placement deck building fusion game. Remember a few years ago when that was like, right out of the bat, we had Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium, and then right after that, Endless Winter. Well, we've got another one now. Another brilliant worker placement game that fuses itself with deck building and becomes more than the sum of its parts. Here's the story for this one. The world in question is a lush, verdant, alien world we found that's just got lots of primitive life forms, and we didn't go out there to terraform it and colonize it. We just sent out scientists to study it because it envisions an optimistic, hopeful future that humanity gets their act together, which I'm always happy to see. But anyway, here's the problem, folks. We've been enjoying, we set up a base on the moon, and we're studying all the animals, we're learning about, the ecosystem, and oh dear, a comet is coming. It's going to be here in 60 years, 6 rounds, with each round being a decade. It's going to be here, and it's going to devastate this planet. We have 60 years to save this world. And how do we do it? Well, 3 propositions. 1, build a space laser and blow the thing up. And of course, being humans, even if we're evolved future humans, our first thought still, let's just build a gun and shoot it. If that doesn't work, though, we could build a shield and redirect it away from the planet. That's great. But if neither of those work, there's always plan C, evacuation. Get as many of those animal species off the planet and over to our moon base so that they will survive the cataclysm that's coming. So, here's the deal. At the beginning of the game, any of these are a viable solution, but players all have cards that make them invested in one or the other. And throughout the worker placement, we are going to be putting our time and effort and resources into, okay, I'm all about those shields. I'm going to make that work. I'm going to try and make that be the dominant thing because I don't think, unless multiple players are working on the gun, I don't think Space Laser is going to do it, but the shield will. And so that's what I'm all about. And I do that with worker placement fused with deck building because each player has 3 workers. And the workers can either be on the planet doing stuff on the planet, gathering resources we need to build whatever our project is or prepare the species for evacuation. Or our workers can be up on a moon base where we're also working on the projects and doing scientific research and stuff. And here's the thing. Your workers, your 3 workers, are either on the surface or on the planet. Maybe you've got one on the moon and 2 of them on the planet. That limits what they can do. And so I've got 2 on the planet, but I need to get you up on the moon because I need to be working on the scientific breakthrough so I can get this, or I need to do more work on the laser or whatever it might be, and I have to do that on the moon. So you've got 2 ways to move your workers around. One is spend energy, a very precious resource, to shuttle them back and forth. So, okay, you're on the planet, I'm gonna have you do a worker placement action on the moon, but it's gonna cost me more energy because I had to shuttle you up there. You don't want to do that. That's very wasteful. You need that energy for other stuff. The other option is to do an action on the planet that has a shuttle icon on it. Because half of the actions on the planet have a shuttle and half don't. And if you do one with a shuttle, next round, you'll automatically, for free, go up to the moon. And so if you can wait until next round to do on the moon what you want to do, you don't have to waste your energy. You'll get up there for free. But that means which action are you going to do on the planet? What if the action you really want to do that has a shuttle on it has already been taken by another player? So you have to do a lesser action because that'll help you with your third thing you're trying to do because you really just want to get them up on the moon so you can do this, but you don't want to spend the energy because you're saving that for other stuff. Now, everything I just talked about is the worker placement half of the game. But then there's the deck building part of the game too. We start, I think, with just 3 cards in hand. Maybe it was 2. Not very many, a small deck. And there are 3 types of cards. There's cards that when you do an action, you can play the card and make that action more powerful. There's cards that basically give you in-game goals. Oh, my phone is ringing. Hold on. It was spam. Anyway, though, there's cards that give you objectives that you're trying to do. Hey, get an extra point for every investment you've made on your moon infrastructure, or whatever it might be. And the third type of card are yellow action cards. And those are basically like extra workers. When you play them, they let you do a full worker action. Hey, I can't get up to the moon to help work on the space laser right now. But instead, I'll buy this card and play it because it lets me work on the space laser from anywhere. And I don't have to be tied to my worker. So you've got these different cards. And the thing is, the more cards you have in your deck, the more incredibly expensive it gets to buy more cards. This is a game where you only start with a few, and you're probably not going to buy very many. Although, if you can find ways to get rid of cards, your older, weaker cards, and just jettison them from the game, then suddenly it gets cheaper to buy new cards. So the deck building is radically different than any other game I've ever seen. And it would have been fine just for this game just to be a really cool deck builder. But it's a really cool, unique, and innovative deck builder fused with a really cool, unique, and innovative worker placement game with an incredibly wonderful theme of trying our best to save this planet while still competing, because at the end of the day we are still human. I love everything about this game, and I haven't even told you about the really cool way that it manages resources. The way that by the way, did I mention every one of those cards is a multi-use card, because you can use them for what they say, or instead you can discard them to give you a temporary boost to make other actions better. Oh man. Again, watch for it, folks. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very impressed. I think this is a first-time designer, if I recall. I was really blown away by number 4 of the month, How to Save a World. Okay, now let's move on to, number 3 of the month, The Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig, which I have not done a run-through for, but there's pictures that get the idea across on Board Game Geek, and this is it. This is basically the Castles of Mad King Ludwig turned into a roll and write game. And in the process of doing this game is, for my taste and for Jen's taste, 10,000 times better than the original Castles of Mad King Ludwig. It has all of the charm and the interesting, crazy-shaped polyomino gameplay of Castles of Mad King Ludwig, trying to cobble together a castle with all kinds of weird, eccentric rooms based on the requests of the Mad King. But you're doing it by using colored pencils to draw on the board all the different crazy shapes and get them to jigsaw puzzle together. So it's, instead of tile laying, it's tile drawing. But what really elevates this game, what makes it, for me, a superior experience to the original Castles of Mad King Ludwig, is that it is a drafting game. It is not an I split, you choose game, which I found this whole economy of trying to save money and breaking things into different parcels, that made the originals of Castles of Mad... We got rid of it eventually, even though we thought the tiling was great. The getting of tiles was so slow and ponderous. When it came Jen's turn, she was trying to figure out, what do I value, and put things into bundles, and then how expensive are they? Oh, it just took away from what was fun about this game, the really clever tile laying. And this game just streamlines it down to a super fast playing game where we're just taking turns grabbing tiles that represent different types of rooms and then playing them onto the board. And every time we get a new tile, a new room, a new room, there are different types. And each room has one or more doors on it. When you just put the room down, that's not really doing much for you, except, hey, maybe it's helping you finish an objective because the Mad King demanded a lot of yellow rooms. And hey, I've got this yellow room I can play. But the thing is, I put the dessert room in. It helps me towards either the public objectives that we're competing over or my own private objectives that nobody knows about, right? All that kind of stuff. But that's it. If, however, on a later turn, I can get another room connected to it so that all of its doors connect to other rooms, that's when it unlocks its special ability. And every type of room, let's see, I think there's a picture of it here somewhere. Every type of room has a different special ability, whether it's giving you extra turns or letting you insert secret doors that will then let you create connections where you normally couldn't create connections, or all kinds of things. Yeah, there's, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of rooms. Each type of room gives you a different special power. And the real trick is, as you unlock more of these powers and then you wait to use them at the right time, you can unlock big combo chains of super turns by combining this red power that I earned back at the beginning of the game with this green power I just got, but both of them only work because I used the blue power first to change this other thing over here, and it is so satisfying. It is the best of what you expect these days from a roll and write. Ever since Gone Shown Clever introduced this idea of all these different things you can work on that combo in interesting ways and feed into each other, it does that, but combines it with what was already one of the most fun, madcap and satisfying tile laying games of all time, because you still get these weird shapes that you're trying to squeeze together as best you can. There's very few Tetris pieces here, and it's so satisfying. Jen loves it. I love. Oh, and if all that weren't enough, what's absolutely brilliant is you're not drawing on a piece of paper, regular paper. You're drawing on transparent vellum paper, because you can take the card. Let's see if they show a picture of doing this. They really should. You can take a card, and if you're trying to figure out, right, how is this really weird shape going to fit? You can take it and slide it underneath the vellum paper and rotate the card to figure out what's the best way I'm going to make this thing fit for the other rooms. And they didn't need to do this, but it is so brilliant. It is such a smart idea. And it's so satisfying. And it makes this feel like you're making blueprints, like you're working with that special blueprint paper. I love it. I love everything about this. It has instantly become one of my favorite roll and writes. It's also, I would say, one of the heaviest roll and writes I've ever played. It's really crunchy in the best possible way. It's number 3 of the month and an early on favorite to make it into my top 10 games of the year for 2024. The Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig. We're still not done though, folks. I got 2 more to talk about. So let's move on to number 2, Earth, with the new Abundance expansion, which I did a sponsored preview for. It's crowdfunding right now. And here's the deal, folks. Up until recently, Earth was my number 1 highest ranked game for 2023. It's currently my number 2 highest ranked game. I think it is one of the best games I've played in years. It instantly went into my top 50 games of all time. But with this Abundance expansion, it punches its way into my top 20 games of all time. It is such a huge, transformative expansion without sacrificing anything that made the original Earth game so special. And let's just remind everybody, because I've been seeing a lot recently of people saying, yeah, Earth is way overrated. It doesn't do anything special. And I just have to say, anybody who says that, what game are you playing? What other game is this rich and crunchy, this complex and engine building exercise where you're trying to build this grid of cards, but you have to arrange the cards both to make them score well, but also to run your engine to peak efficiency, because you activate cards from top left to bottom right based on the color of the action you chose or your opponents chose. There's so much interplay between players and paying attention to, oh my gosh, you're really powerful in red. I can't just keep doing red and giving you get more out of the red action than I do, but I need to do this red action right now because I need more soil or whatever it is. The interplay between players is palpable. If I'm paying attention to what you're doing and you're not paying attention to what I'm doing, guaranteed, I will win the game, because there's that much synergy between players, as there should be, because this is about biomes, building biomes on the planet. But anyway, that's just talking about the original Earth. Oh, and then the other thing that I love about Earth is it's such a big, rich, complex beast of a game that you can get done, no matter the player count, in under an hour. That is unheard of. And that is worthy of celebrating. That is truly innovative. You just don't see that. And even in other games that use the, hey, one player chooses an action, everybody gets to do it, ever since it was introduced back with Puerto Rico, I guess. Still, that doesn't make other games fast. This game is fast and satisfying. In 1 hour of play, you get the depth and breadth of experience that you would normally have to have a 2+ hour game to play. And that's what makes it great. Anyway, though, that's just me once again singing the praises of Earth. I'm here to tell you about why Earth Abundance makes it even better. There's 2 big complaints people have about Earth when they're talking about specifics. One is that there's not enough interaction between players. One, I call hogwash on that. But if you do prescribe to that, you're in luck. Abundance adds 30% more cards, So 1 out of every 3 cards when you play the game that you come across will be from Abundance, and almost every card from Abundance is specifically designed to be a directly interactive card, where they either give you benefits based on what your neighbors are doing, or they give you resources, but you have to pick other players around the board to get resources at the same time. So if somebody says, me please, mine, you get all that kind of stuff. It becomes 5 times more interactive as soon as you throw Abundance, or 3 times, I guess, because it literally, adds 30% more cards to the deck. Instantly becomes a super interactive game, directly interactive. But the beautiful thing is, it's all positive. There's no bringing meteors down to smash anybody into the dirt to get interaction. It's all about, right, if I do this and it benefits me, I got to pay attention to how it benefits other people and who will it benefit. So suddenly the game becomes 10 times more interactive, and that's awesome. The other thing is it introduces this new concept, this new resource called seeds. And these give you so much flexibility because you can make cards that will grow seeds for you. And then you can use them as wild resources. Or you can, if you have more soil, if you have leftover soil, which is hard because you need soil for other stuff. Or no, is it sprouts? I think it's soil you turn into seeds. Is it? Yeah. It's soil that you can turn into seeds. You could turn, anyway though. Once you have these seeds, you can, anytime you want, convert them into soil, into sprouts, into growth. But the most important thing, you can use those seeds to do the germinate action. And the germinate action says, pick a type of card and then go digging through the deck until you find it and add it to your hand. Because that was the other big complaint. People say, oh, this deck of cards is so big, it's impossible to actually synergize and strategize with the cards I want and never find the card I need. I can't find that last tree, or I can't find that green objective card, or whatever it might be. Hey, now use one of your seeds, declare that's what you want, and just draw from the deck until you find something that fits that and add it to your hand. So you can have anything you want. And the beautiful thing is, you can do that when it's not your turn. So you don't even slow the game down. I mean, that was so smart. It could have been a real bummer, but no, the game keeps moving along just as fast as it ever did. But now you have so much control over your fate and you have so much interaction with players that it, like I said, has significantly bumped up the quality. And honestly, I don't see how it can't address those 2 fundamental problems that some players levy against Earth. With Earth Abundance, you have an abundance of choices, and I love it all the more. It's my number 2 game of the month, but folks, my number 1 game of the month is Daybreak. And here's the deal, folks. Daybreak, breaking news, everybody. Daybreak just broke in to my number 1 spot for best game of 2023. Sadly, I was not able to get a copy of Daybreak when I was on the road, me and my wife doing a 6-month road trip through Baja, Mexico. We were south of the border and I just could not get a copy. So I was not able to play it until we got back home and we played it this month in April. And I've played it a bunch now. I played it a bunch with Jen. I played it a bunch solo. And the more I play it, the more I fall in love with it. This is from designer Matt Leacock, working with a relatively new designer, Mateo. Medeis? I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name, Mateo. But Leacock and Mateo, working together, have made one of the greatest co-op games of all time. Not only is this the best game of 2023 as far as I'm concerned, this is now my 12th highest ranked game in history. It's just outside of my top 10. And the more I play it, I can imagine it climbing higher and higher. And the more I play it, the more I love it. And it's absolutely phenomenal. What is it? We are nation states doing our best to decarbonize, to save the planet. And we're working cooperatively as best we can. Yes, one could say it's kind of a flight of fancy because it envisions a world where humanity gets their freaking act together and acts like we are in the middle of a 5-alarm fire, which we are, and takes steps to do it. And it's represented in game through a brilliant engine building system where every round you have a handful of cards, 5 cards. And each one of those cards you can either play to upgrade an existing project to let you generate resources you need, or fight climate problems by building up resiliency, or eliminating sectors of your economy and replacing dirty versions of transportation with clean versions. Whatever it is, there's all these different things you're trying to do, which happen to be all the things we as a species need to do. So you can either make one of your existing, because every player starts with 5 projects, so you can upgrade them. You can tuck the cards under existing cards and make them more powerful by matching icons. Hey, this is an economy card. I could make this thing that needs money a more powerful version so I can run that engine more efficiently. Because this is basically an engine building game where you've got 5 engines on the go at any given time. Now, instead, you could play that card on top of a stack of cards and redirect everything that was going to that old project into a new project. So as you're building up these projects, you're not building them up to just be this one thing you do over and over again. Sooner or later, you have to pivot from one problem to another. So if you're smart with how you build your projects, you could then replace old projects with new projects that benefit from all the investments of the old projects. Which again is just absolutely freaking brilliant. It's so smart. But then there's a third thing you can do with these cards, which is discard them. Because most of the projects you have to discard cards to activate the engines you've got to affect change to save the planet. That's what makes the gameplay here so phenomenal. This could have been any subject matter, really. Like I was talking with Jen about this in her Gen Jogs, where it was her favorite game of the month too. Or wait, no, it wasn't. No, Blueprints was. This was her second favorite game. Anyway, I don't remember. Anyway, though, you can check out, if you're a subscriber, you can check out the Gen Jog show and hear what Jen thinks and how she ranked every single one of these things on a 5-star scale. Anyway, I just did spoilers for him, but I didn't because I don't remember exactly what she said. Anyway, though, as we were talking about it, you could retheme this to be running a bakery if you wanted, and all the problems of deforestation and melting ice caps and air pollution or whatever could just be replaced with problems that somebody has running, and the engines are about dealing with distributors and customers and stuff like that. This could have been any theme. And still be just as phenomenal a cooperative Euro game. But the fact that they chose this theme and they spent the time for every single card in this game to put a little QR scannable code on it, that while you're playing, while you're waiting for somebody else to figure out how to puzzle out their turn, because, oh, by the way, everybody plays simultaneously too, so it's a fast game. This game could play, significantly faster than other games of its ilk. I mean, this game plays in a fraction of the time as Terraforming Mars. This is kind of like a cooperative Terraforming Mars, except for terraforming Earth to make it continue to be habitable. That is kind of an elevator pitch for this game. But unlike Terraforming Mars, which takes frickin' hours, this game zips along at a super clip because it's cooperative and because everybody does their turn simultaneously. But sometimes you'll be done earlier and you're looking at this card, what is this thing? This particular thing this car is talking about. Pull out your smartphone, scan the QR code. It will take you to a page devoted not only to telling you everything you need to know about that card from a gameplay perspective. If you have rules, questions, I don't understand how this works. Scan it and you can just look it up instantly. This is the future of interactive rule books, folks, that players can just scan and just get instant answers rather than having to dig through a 20-page rule book to look for the answer. That's just brilliant for that. But then you could also scan it and learn more about the real-world impact of this project for social change or scientific breakthrough or whatever it is. You can also read actual scientific papers. There's links for real stuff that let you know more about it. And most importantly, it will also tell you what you can do yourself on a local level to help this particular. So if you watch this and you get particularly inspired, if you win a game because of this one card and then you read about it and say, I could make this something that happens literally in my neighborhood or in my community. Here's what I have to do. The game also is a rallying cry for activism, and it becomes a blueprint for activism too. Now, if you don't care about any of that, you don't need to. You can just treat this as a fun version. Like I said, you could treat this as a cooperative Terraforming Mars, a brilliant engine building game that is so satisfying to play. But it's so much more than that. And it's all these things combined that make it not only my number one game of the month, but my number one game of 2023. And potentially, heck, given time, it might ultimately push its way into my top 10 games of all time. That's Daybreak, folks. Phew! And that's it. Another month. What did I just do? I just went for 80 minutes. And I only talked about 16 games. I'm sorry, folks. Please let me know down in the comments if you'd like me to sum it up quicker. I just tend to get going once I get going. But regardless, I'm just going to say thank you for watching, everybody. And we'll be back again with another, monthly roundup. And finally, I also do want to say thank you very much to sponsor the show, Arcane Wonders, and their awesome simple diving, deep strategies game, Aquatica, which, again, is on sale now at the Arcane Wonders site. Links down in the show notes below. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.